Welcome everyone to another great episode of the Pay-Per-View Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Mark Flores. Tonight's topic is the 2016 WWE Draft. The long-awaited draft WWE needed to put through just because they had too many superstars on deck. The key points that we need to make sure that we get through with this is what can we see going forward with WWE in calendar year 2016-2017, what surprises did we see, and what key points to make. Before we get that underway, it's time for commercials. Tonight's pay-per-view wrestling podcast is brought to you by Game Swappers. Game Swappers. Buy, sell, and trade your retro games and next-gen consoles. That's PS4 and Xbox One. You can come into contact with Game Swappers via Instagram at GAMESWAPPERS. That's GAMESWAPPERS. Game Swappers. Buy, sell, and trade. Keep in mind, guys, that if you do share the pay-per-view podcast, the Retro Collecting 101 Retro Gaming Podcast, or the Mark and Andre Show, where we talk about film, entertainment, and conspiracy theories, you'll be able to get 10% off towards your retro game purchases at Game Swappers, or 10% more towards your retro game trade-ins. Simply screenshot, show them, and then share it, and you'll be able to get 10% off your retro game purchase, or 10% more towards your trade-ins. The WWE Draft is come and gone. Some people's predictions have gone by the wayside. Others had their predictions right on the mark. With that being said, here are some observations I made reading the list of picks from last night's draft, and this is what I can expect from WWE as far as calendar year 2016 and calendar year 2017. Looking at it at its face, what you need to make sure, and what I need to make sure that the audience gets through, that you guys need to know, is that the main rounds to really focus on is rounds 1 through 6. At about round 6 in the draft, the picks for both programs become about even in terms of numbers, not in terms of superstar talent, what have you. Picks 1 through 30 will be the main anchors to their respective show. The remainder of the picks will unfortunately be filler. Not to say that the rest of the picks are useless. It's more like we know what's going. It's like more like we know who's going where as far as storylines and pushes go. Rounds 1 through 6 basically give you about 15 superstars to Raw and 15 superstars to SmackDown. These top picks are basically showing you who's going to be the main ones to see coming calendar year, the rest of calendar year 2016 and calendar year 2017. Of course, there was a lot of strange picks, but there was a lot of picks that, just because, well, let's just be honest, this whole thing's nothing but a big work, but it goes to show you who they want you to focus their importance on. Another key point to make, too, is that WWE tried to make it their hardest. WWE tried their hardest, to make it seem like the draft itself was a shoot draft. But despite their efforts, you can definitely tell that it was a work. Yes, they did change some of the draft picks midway through the night, as you could see by the Cesaro pick. Cesaro's bio was actually mixed up with Devon Dudley's bio, so it's something to note that when Cesaro got picked number 16th or 17th, he actually did a shoot promo and actually started downplaying the GM situation and honestly trying to get the WWE audience on his side when it comes to regards of ring talent, and they should be the ones that are getting this push of initiation. And he basically key points saying that he wanted to, instead of being on the Raw brand, he wanted to be on the SmackDown brand because he believes that the SmackDown brand actually has a lot more talent and a lot more to give than the Raw brand does. But the main point to make too as well along with that is that major talents were being picked late in the rounds. Doesn't make sense to me. If this is a work, it makes sense because it shows you that they want a certain amount of people getting picked ahead just to let you know who's going to be advertised more often than not. But having guys like John Cena and Brock Lesnar, both being the highest paid talent on the WWE, being picked after Roman Reigns, doesn't make a bit of sense to me. There was just a little bit. There was just too many glaring holes when it came down to the draft itself. But overall, I thought the draft was much needed. WWE has an influx of talent that they need to separate. Separation lets the talent on their respective shows have independent storylines that don't coincide with the program that they're not on. So a person from Raw isn't going to go to SmackDown to interfere, or a person from SmackDown isn't going to get involved with a character from Monday Night Raw, etc. But what I'm getting to with this is, what are the best things to take away from this whole event? One good thing to take away from this whole event is that Mauro Ranallo is finally going to actually be calling his own pay-per-views, which I think is pretty awesome. I think he's the best commentator that the WWE has right now, next to Corey Graves as a heel commentator, but it's something to appreciate because this guy's actually a more experienced color commentator than Michael Cole is. But another good thing to take away from this whole WWE draft is that there's more reasons to watch each show now. There's more space for talent that need to be shown versus the other talent that was getting the same playthrough every single week. And a great example would be the whole Roman Reigns thing that was going on Monday night, and that was going on the next night as well, being advertised, being involved in storylines. So now this spreads everything out pretty evenly as far as getting talent evenly distributed, as far as getting talent, giving them their spot on their respective shows. And then another great point to bring with that is that some of your favorite stars are spread to each show, giving the viewing audience more reason to tune in. So AJ Styles is on SmackDown, where the the Club is actually on Raw. You know, there's different talent peppered in everywhere. So it's going to give the WWE Universe more reasons to watch both shows. It was a great strategy, I think, by WWE, and it's something that they needed to do for a long time, just because they have a lot of talent to show off. NXT call-ups, Nia Jax, Alexa Bliss, Mojo Rawley, Carmella, and American Alpha were all called up. And I think that these picks were the ones that they needed to do. American Alpha was overdue to actually have a debut as a tag team, and Carmella, I think, definitely still needs a little more work, but it's definitely something to appreciate to have her on the SmackDown brand. Alexa Bliss makes her debut too as well on one of the shows as well. So this is going to be something to watch, especially with the NXT call-ups. It gives more exposure to NXT as well, and it almost solidifies it as its own identity. A lot of people were kind of upset that no one, that WWE, that any of the GMs picked Austin Aries, Nakamura, Andrade Cien Almas. No one picked them, but you have to realize, since it's a work, they got to make sure to keep the prime talent, the prime NXT talent on that show, just because they are going to be the only people that are going to be putting butts in seats. You're not going to have, it would be nonsensical, and Finn Balor, not to mention, as one of the call-ups as well. It would be nonsensical for them to actually take Nakamura, take Austin Aries, Samoa Joe, and all these other wrestlers, and then have a show like on NXT that just doesn't produce anything. People won't even watch it, just because it's going to be a lot of local indie stars, and it's going to be a lot of people that have to make their debut, and it won't be productive at all for WWE at all. So one thing to note from this WWE draft is that it was kind of inconsistent. It was really it was really obvious to see that it was a work. It was not an actual shoot draft at all. So the top, the top picks from round 1 through 6 will definitely show you who's actually going to be the people that you're going to see in calendar year 2016, 2017 actually doing something on the pay-per-views with main storylines, etc. This actually helps out WWE by spreading out the brand. A lot of people that want to see SmackDown have another superstar that they can see on Raw. So it's going to have people watching back-to-back Monday and Tuesday nights, since SmackDown is going to be live on Tuesday nights now. So it's nothing but good things. I see nothing but great things going forward with WWE, especially with superstars being split up. Now I have more reason to watch on Tuesdays. Actually, I have all the reason to watch because it was, SmackDown was formerly on Thursdays. So now I have back-to-back action going on Monday and Tuesday, forbidding any spoilers or anything of that nature. But as far as the NXT call-ups, be excited for Finn Balor if you followed him through NXT. Be excited for American Alpha, and also be excited for Carmella and Alexa Bliss and Nia Jax as well. It's going to be something to see. We'll see what storylines come up starting next week. That way we can go on from there, and I'll be sure to have another pay-per-view wrestling podcast when the new news breaks out on whatever storylines develop. But anyway, I want to let you know is that this pay-per-view wrestling podcast has been brought to you by Game Swappers. Game Swappers, buy, sell, and trade your retro games and next-gen consoles. That's PS4 and Xbox One. You can come into contact with Game Swappers via Instagram at GAMESWAPPERS. That's GAMESWAPPERS. Game Swappers, buy, sell, and trade. Keep in mind, guys, that if you do share the pay-per-view wrestling podcast, my Retro Collecting 101 podcast, or even the Mark and Andre show, the current event film and entertainment and conspiracy theory show, you'll be able to get 10% off towards your trade-in, 10% off towards your game purchases at Game Swappers, or you'll get 10% more towards your trade-ins, depending how you want to do that. Simply take a screenshot, share it with the guys at Game Swappers, and rack in the savings. 10% off does take a lot with taxes. Definitely takes care of all that. Anyway, you guys have a good night. That was the pay-per-view wrestling podcast on the WWE Drive. Thank you. Have a good night.